Why, hello. So today I want to talk about two bad bitches of history. Those two bad bitches are Lydia Child and Fanny Fern. You've probably never heard about them unless you're a literary major. Basically, Lydia Child and Fanny Fern are two literary figures that are extremely important activists who push the line forward of what a female can do and how they can affect their world around them. So this is a lie. I actually wasn't able to do Child as well just because of time and memory constraints. I don't think my computer can handle having more time on this video. So I had to not do Lydia. But I think I did a good job and I had some fun talking about Fern, so I hope you enjoy. Fanny Fern. Okay, so Fanny Fern is this amazing, incredible figure. So basically, there are two types of way to be an activist. You're extremely in someone's face and you're like throwing rocks at their houses and you're like egging their car and kicking them in the mouth and then like trying to eat their children. You can be a activist like that and people are going to pay attention to you because you're eating their children. But there's another way to be an activist. There's a more subtle of like pushing the boundaries but still walking the line of both sides of the argument, and that's what Fanny Fern does, and she does it beautifully. Basically, she's a columnist. She starts writing for this newspaper, and her voice in that newspaper is extremely popular. People recognize Fanny Fern's voice, and people read the newspaper to listen to her. She's actually extremely high paid writer at this time, which is not only unheard of for men, but definitely for women. So not only is she making a fuck ton of money, but she's making a fuck ton of money in something that people usually don't make a lot of money in. So that's amazing. She kind of like pokes fun at what women are in this day and age. Without making men uncomfortable, which is extremely important because it brings the conversation of what women do within the household to the household. Fern takes a different direction in that she makes the conversation more subtle. It gives the opportunity for women to talk about it at the dinner table with their husbands. I want to first talk about where Fanny Fern comes from, and then I'll talk about some of the passages that she uses, and give you some examples of how she goes about finessing the shit out of most men in her time. So basically, the way that she started is extremely cool. The enzyme that made her become the person who she is the death of her husband. Woo! So the death of her husband kind of sends her in this place that is not the best. She's living with her husband. He passes away, and then because she is an object, she's not like, you think history cares about women? Of course not. So her husband dies. So they send her over to the family, and the family doesn't treat her well. The family that she has to go to doesn't really like her, and they basically like treat her. But she's kind of getting treated like she doesn't exist. It's definitely emotionally taxing to have someone who is your air quotes family look at you and be like, hey, could you like stand over there because I can feel your existence and I don't like that. So she didn't like that, and she decided to redefine herself successfully. She was just like, "Hey, I'm going to be a writer," and then she became a writer, changed her name to Fanny Fern, and then became this really prolific person who's basically the way that she conducts herself is by poking fun at things. And a great example of that is all the way that she subtly talks shit about men. For example, there's I don't know what I'm doing. A man never stoops to a meanness. There never was a criticism yet born of any or malice or repulsive love or disappointed admission. No, no. Thank the gods, I have a more exalted opinion of masculinity. Basically, men are shit. Oh, a man who's a piece of shit? I've never heard of one. She's definitely heard of one. So basically, this is my little interpretation of what it might feel like to be a woman in this time period where Fern is writing, where a man and a woman are sitting at a table and the conversation of Fern comes up. No offense to you guys, but clearly you're not intelligent. And, you know, how do women even have time to make pants and fix the things around the house if they're writing? They have nothing to say, you know. Right. You have to be good at things to be a writer. Well, let's face it. I mean, clearly I'm not talking about you. You're great, but let's be real here. And that Fanny Fern, she's just funny, you know. She's funny, but I don't know. Did you actually read the column that you wrote today? Yeah, it just kind of made me realize that you're the worst. Yeah, I'm making fun of you. There's definitely a bunch of men that are pieces of shit. In fact, I would say that most of them are pieces of shit. And not only that, but let's put a layer on top of that, most of them are idiots as well. That's what Fanny Fern is doing, but in a way where men read it and they're like, "Oh, look at this sweet gal." Little do they know that she's talking shit about you. Ah, with this, basically, Fanny Fern is addressing the hypocrisy of man and how they treat women in today's day and age, especially when it comes to her writing. Basically, the entire text is talking about how men have this kind of like idealized version of themselves where they never speak badly upon other women, or they're never mean or vile in any kind of way. And clearly, that's not true. And she's poking fun of that. She's basically being like, oh, yeah, no man has ever been rude to me. No man has ever said things with meanness. No man has ever done these things that they have clearly done. And what this does is it opens the conversation for acknowledging the fact that men are hypocrites and are treating women badly, and in a way that shows up in the house. So if this isn't a newspaper, if this isn't a column and it's on the table while a man and a woman are having lunch together, who knows how that affects that conversation? That conversation can grow into something where now the woman is maybe asking for respect, or maybe even if it doesn't get to that point, maybe the woman in that situation is now second guessing her own power. Maybe she before would have felt like, okay, I do have to do everything that a man says because men are superior and I am inferior. But having Fanny Fern as a figure subtly fighting for women's rights, that same woman could read that on the table and then start rethinking the way that she moves and she acts around her husband. There's actually another text where she talks about how to she gives this really fun relationship advice where she basically says, hey, if you want to have a good relationship with your husband, don't just do everything your husband says. Actively annoy him. Be loud, be obnoxious, be there and present in the moment, and put your foot down and push against him because it'll wake him up, rather than just doing everything that he says and existing in the background. And while that could be taken as relationship advice, it to me it's so cool that like it's so clearly the first step towards a discreet revolt, a way of engaging in a war of superiority against the enemy without them even knowing. And it's amazing. Fanny Fern is great. So, so I've been working on this for a very long time now, and frankly, I have a headache. I don't really have a great way of transitioning out of this video, and all of my sunlight is gone. And also, I'm hot, so I don't have my jacket on anymore, and my fake glasses are annoying me. All that to be said, that Fanny Fern, I think, is a really important person in history. There are a lot of people who say more brave things than she does. And a lot of people who really try to make an impact more so than Fanny Fern. People who really step down and put their feet down and say, this is what I want to say, and you will listen to me. But what I think makes Fanny Fern so important is that she does that without anyone noticing. She sneaks her way into the household and into the minds of everyone, not just the people who she is fighting for, but the people who she is fighting against. Fanny Fern is in their head and is constantly around them, and that's important. I think that's such an important thing. Like, think about the context of like you're so much closer to winning a war when you make your enemy laugh. When Fanny Fern is able to make men laugh at themselves, that's a kink in the armor, and that's something that women can take advantage of, and they can see themselves as real people and fight for something that they believe in. It's not just, this isn't reaching just the people who are smart enough and conscious enough to read the literary magazine. Those people already know what they're fighting for. But the people who didn't know what they were fighting for, just the people who are doing errands in their house, now know who Fanny Fern is and can follow the tracks of what Fanny Fern, which is to say that we are women and we have value. And I would like to think of a world where Fanny Fern didn't exist. How much longer it would have taken women to rise up? Because I think that's really important. Getting the word not to the people who are looking for it, but getting the word to the people who didn't know they needed it. And Fanny Fern did that in such a fun, enthusiastic, and influential way. She made feminism and valuing yourself as a woman fun and engaging and natural. And I think that has so much value in the way that she affects the world in women's history. I think I'm going to end it there. Like I said, I have a headache. I really hope you appreciate my attempt at a YouTube video. And I hope this exports and uploads on time. I think it should. But exporting is weird. So, adios.